Hey there. So we are doing Romans 13 today in the 1599 Geneva Bible. Kind of a hard chapter to read, right? Because, we're in the end times. So, show them over here. This is about submission to authorities, all right? He will, right? Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God, and the powers that be are ordained of God. Right? God put everybody in power. He let them, right? Probably let them, right? If the president from the last 4 years had never been in there would have been a lot of stuff we would have never found out. Okay, that now we know. Okay, everything's coming to the light, right? And even Paul. Okay, he wrote a lot of these. He wrote this from Corinth, but he wrote later from prison by the Romans. They were subject to the Roman Empire, right? Who sometimes tolerated Christians, sometimes hated Christians, right? And even their own people, the Pharisees, hated the Christians. So they were under that, right? Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves condemnation. Yeah, look, and there's no notes on that, right? What's it say over here? Let every person be subject to governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God. And those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. So it's condemnation over here, right? Right. Now there are protests, okay? But you can protest that say you don't agree with it, but still submit to the authorities, okay? We follow the law, okay? For magistrates are not to be feared for good works, but for evil. What does that mean? So look at the notes here. The third argument taken from the end, wherefore they were made, which is most profitable for that God. Why can't you block that off so you can't see it? Okay. We were on 3, right? Yeah, 3. F. Right. The third argument taken from the end, wherefore they were made, which is most profitable, for that God by this means preserveth the good and bridleth the wicked, by which words the magistrates themselves are put in mind of that duty which they owe to their subjects. Right? An excellent way to bear this yoke, not only without grief, but also with great profit. Okay. Right. Not to be feared for good works, but for evil. Wilt thou then be without fear of the power? Do well, so thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God for thy wealth. But if thou do evil, fear, for he beareth not the sword for naught, for he is the minister of God to take vengeance on him that doeth evil. Yeah, but what if the magistrates are the ones doing the evil? Okay. Right. Wherefore you must be subject, not because of wrath only, but also for conscience sake. Right. Did we read that one? The conclusion, we must obey the magistrate not only for fear of punishment, but much more because that, although the magistrate have no power over the conscience of man, yet seeing he is God's minister, he cannot be resisteth by any good conscience. Wow. Got to follow these people no matter what. So, like I said this is a hard chapter. So, wherefore you must be subject, not because of wrath only, but also for conscience sake. Right. For this cause ye pay also tribute, for they are God's ministers, applying themselves for the same thing. Right? That's taxes. Right? Give to all men, therefore, their duty. Tribute to whom ye owe tribute. Custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom ye owe honor. Owe nothing to any man, but love one another. For he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. Okay? It says right here, owe nothing to any man, right? And we know that we should be, right? We can never be debt free. I mean, and Solomon back in Proverbs said, we are slaves, right? Slaves to debt. If you're in debt, you are a slave to that debtor. Okay? You have to pay them every month or they will take away everything you have. Right? For this thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not covet. And if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, even in this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Right? You will not do evil to somebody you love as yourself, right? So, obey the law. Okay? Obey the law. Which you do. Love doeth not evil to his neighbor, therefore is love the fulfilling of the law. I said that, right? And that, considering this season, that it is now time that we should arise from sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than we believed it. Nearer than when we believed it. The night is past, and the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast away the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light, so that we walk honestly, as in the day, not in gluttony and drunkenness, neither in chambering and wantonness, nor in strife and envying. But put ye on the Lord Jesus Christ, and take no thought for the flesh, to fulfill the lust of it. Right? Walk in the Spirit, not in the flesh. Right? Hard to do, right? Not in the flesh. Man, look at all these notes. Okay, let's read this over here in our own language, right? Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. Don't break the law. Even if they make stupid laws, you can't break even stupid laws. Okay? For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Right? If you behave yourself, they won't give you any trouble, right? Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval, for he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain, for he is the servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. Therefore, one must be in subjection, not only to avoid God's wrath, but also for the sake of conscience. For because of this, you also pay taxes. For the authorities are ministers of God, attending to this very thing. Pay to all what is owed to them, taxes to whom taxes are owed, revenue to whom revenue is owed, respect to whom respect is owed, honor to whom honor is owed, right? Pay your taxes, right? I take care of them. I'm sure there's other places to say what's wrong when these magistrates and rulers actually go evil. And God always gets them in the Old Testament, so, right? Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, because we know there are a lot of people in power now making very bad decisions. So, right? And King David made bad decisions in the end. Solomon made terrible decisions in the end. Wisest man that ever lived, right? And it happens. And God always fixes it in the end, so we've got to wait for God to fix it in the end, right? Right. Fulfilling the law through love. Oh, no one anything. Right. Except to love each other. For the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and any other commandment are summed up in this word: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law. Besides this, you know the time. That is, the hour has come for you to wake from sleep, for salvation is nearer to us now than when we first believed. Word for word, right? The night is far gone, and the day is at hand. So let us cast off the works of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us walk properly as in the daytime, not in orgies and drunkenness, not in sexual immorality and sensuality, and not in quarreling and jealousy, but put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires. Okay? How do you do that? You got to think of the Lord all the time. Okay? All the time. So, There you go. That's 13. And there's, like I said, there's a lot of tough stuff in here, okay? When we're in the end times, and even in the Old Testament, they always had a lot of trouble. They had some very evil kings, right? And God appointed them, right? Saul was an evil king. David would not displace him, right? Even though he had plenty of chances, he wouldn't, because he was appointed by God. So even though he went very bad at the end. So, but everybody will get what's due them, right? Okay. Right. Oh, nothing to any man. What does that say down here? Oh, let's go down here and read it. Right. He showeth how very few judgments need to be executed, to wit, if we so order our life as no man may justify requiring anything of us. Besides that, only that we owe one to another by the perpetual law of charity. Okay. Didn't really touch on that. Owe no man anything but love one another. Okay. Are they talking about your brother, your men? You know, you borrowed $20 from your friend and you owe him $20. Okay, you need to pay that back. Okay. Are they maybe not talking about mortgages, credit cards? Okay. That's companies you owe stuff to, not men, but you could take that either way. I mean, you could decide like that, but it says, oh, no one over here, no one. And it says, oh, nothing to any man. So, yeah, we should all be different. And they used to be, okay? Energy didn't used to cost anything. You didn't used to have to pay for gas, okay? Hey? They didn't have electricity. They didn't have plumbing. People went down to get water out of the public well. Okay? They lit candles. Right? They kept warm. You know, there were no bills, okay? And the taxes were put out by the government. So, there you go. That's 13, and we'll just stop there because we're at 12 minutes, so that's good. But this is good stuff. So catch up on the ones you may have missed, and we will continue this again tomorrow. See ya.